Good afternoon, my fellow scientists. It is Tuesday, November 21st, 2017, and I want to talk about aging some more. So, sometime back, there was a neat video by C.G.P. Gray talking about how we should do our best to end aging, that the arguments that, aging is the natural part of life is silly, and that we should end the reaper of age if we possibly can. And I tend to agree. Another paper came out right about that same time, suggesting maybe that was impossible, that aging is just a natural compromise between the biological mechanisms that prevent cancer and the biological mechanisms that mediate cell repair. And if those two compromise and the result is aging, maybe that's just as good as it gets. That is a better hypothesis than the one I had heard when I was in college, this idea that there is essentially a genetic mechanism specifically for aging, because aging allows the old and busted members of a species to go away so that the new hotness can procreate and not compete. And I don't find that particular hypothesis very compelling, the idea that a functional reproductive unit creating genetic offspring should remove itself just because offspring are also that same gene, doesn't seem to mesh with the selfish gene model of evolution. So something seems odd, and so that's why that theory of the balance between anti-cancer and anti-senescence appeals to me. I started reading this book, The Evolution of Senescence in the Tree of Life, and it has a little more in-depth version of the evolution of aging. In particular, the somatic versus germline theory, where the idea is that as a crude analogy, the sperm cells are just using the man as a vehicle to get to their natural endpoint. That's sort of the idea, that there are germline cells that are the real vehicles of evolution, the real vehicles of the genes, and that everything else is just a disposable shell that the gene rides around in within the germline. And so because it's disposable, there's no point in improving the somatic cells, the whole creature, when it's almost certainly going to get eaten or get in an accident or what have you in some amount of time. Why bother to maintain it? Sort of like if you know that the average time a car can go before it gets in a wreck is 5 years, you don't build cars to last 5,000 years. That's just silly. You build it to last maybe 10 or 20 years in the hopes it lasts a little longer than would the average, but in general, you don't build it to last a lot longer than it's going to last before it gets destroyed. If things get eaten, you don't invest energy and genetic work to make them last longer than they will before they get eaten. And that laziness of biology, in some sense, is the genetically optimal, the evolutionary stable strategy. That makes sense to me. So I'm reading up on this. I'm learning a bit just because I find it interesting, and I think it contextualizes some of the new biology and the new biochemistry that's coming out concerning aging, and I'm hopeful that there are going to be new and interesting studies that relate to that in the next very short time, and I will try to cover those and bring them to a easily digestible format. That is in addition to my ongoing coverage of the iron battery and other experiments here in the Allen Lab. I will be talking about progress in those projects as it happens. I will update on the iron battery as results come in, and at least once a week. So if you like talking about aging and new developments in science, interesting speculation about how stuff works, do tune in Monday through Friday. We talk about all that, as well as our own results, right here in the Allen Lab.